Today I'm talking to John Ritchie, Chief Executive of Ellipse. So John, how did you come to be involved with Winston's Wish?
Catherine, it was back in 1999. I was working for Swiss Life UK. In fact, I just joined them, and at the time they were the leading life insurer in the entire group employee benefits market. We were looking to refresh the offer, particularly finding something that was a really useful service for employees, families, and for the corporate sponsor at the time of claim, whether that was long-term disability, critical illness, or a death claim under a life insurance policy. Now, I was talking to a guy called Angus Cater. Angus founded and runs School Fees Trust, and he pushed across the table a leaflet about Winston's Wish. Now, I then had a look at it and thought, this is really interesting. This could be just what I'm looking for as a life insurer. So I went down to Gloucestershire Royal, met Julie Stokes, who was the founder, of course. And at that time, she only had a couple of people with her. And it was a very small organisation. So there we were, 2 million people to be insured. And this, what we thought was a perfect complementary fit to what we did, but it wasn't going to be big enough. So we had to think about how do we enable Winston's to grow, to give a reliable, repeatable service to the number of claimants I'd have coming from 2 million people insured. Now, Julie had been away on a Winston Churchill travelling scholarship, and she harvested best practice around the world and brought that back to the UK and started Winston's Wish. Winston's itself is now a global leader in terms of this work and this model. So that's how we found each other. Now, we just felt that the combination of the money from the life insurance contract that the employer sets up and the emotional and practical support that Winston's gives to families was a very complementary mix. The strapline for the campaign was more than a check, and it worked incredibly well for us.
How does Ellipse support Winston's Wish?
Well, now we have Ellipse. That came from Swiss Life leaving the UK market. I rejoined Munich Re Group, and after a couple of years I started a project to design and build a digital era group risk insurer, and that's Ellipse. We're roughly 4 years old now. Now, in building Ellipse, everything was up for grabs. The way we handle all stages of the process, everything was to be deconstructed and reconstructed, but there was one thing that we were determined not to change, and that was referring our families that have a death in our policies to Winston's. We have just completely replicated that method and that process in Ellipse. Now, what we do is whenever we have a claim, we hand on details about Winston's Wish helpline to the sponsors and the administrators of the scheme, and we want them to hand that on to the family where the employee has died, so that they can get in touch, see how the helpline works, just to access the guidance and the services of Winston's. What we also do now, how does that work? It's actually £100 for every death claim we have. Frankly, we think it's pretty unethical for organisations, commercial organisations like ours, to hand people on to not-for-profit or charitable organisations to access a service that charity provides without sending some funds. At the same time, we are the named sponsor of the suicide and murder work that Winston's does, largely because I think my experience in partnership with Winston's and also as a trustee at Winston's Wish for 4 or 5 years, I feel that is where the expert, clinically based model of Winston's can make the most difference. In fact, it's absolutely essential, particularly where there's a loss or bereavement by suicide.
What do you think a broader involvement between Winston's Wish and the life industry would achieve for both sides?
Well, and this is going to sound a bit disloyal to my industry and to my peers who are leaders in this industry, but life insurance has a long-standing generic brand problem. we've managed somehow over the years to slightly lose touch with our purpose. And what I found in my personal contact with Swiss Life as a trustee and at Ellipse is that Winston's work reminds me of what we're for. It's very easy leading a business like this to be obsessed with the numbers, the new business, the profit margin, the return to the shareholders, and that's natural enough. But truly great businesses never lose touch with their purpose. And what we found at Swiss Life was that our involvement with Winston's made what we did in providing the catastrophe cover, if you like, and supplying the money to families, that became more human and more direct and less intangible because of the work that we did with Winston's. The other thing that Julie taught us was what we do is we protect families. So she started talking about Swiss Life families, and we never really thought about it like that. We thought about schemes, corporate buyers, members, employees, claimants. But what we're actually doing is protecting families. So I suppose the idea is, why can't Winston's be the favoured cause, the favoured charity of the whole life industry? We just, we're a small new company. So we think we're doing our bit with the explicit sponsorship of the murder-suicide work, but there are lots of other different programmes within Winston's that could have their own life sector sponsor. And why can't we mobilise people who advise in the sector, people who work in the insurance companies, to be aligned and fundraisers for the cause? Mind you, I've always thought of it as the cause. I think my loyalty is to the cause more than any one particular organisation. So if that's how I think about Winston's Wish, why shouldn't I think about the life industry in the same way? So that's what I'd like to see. What about Ellipse supports suicide murder work? Aviva could be the named sponsor of the teenage programmes. There are lots and lots of, and a head office of a life company could perhaps help set up a regional offshoot of Winston's in the area where their head office is. Aviva in Norwich, the Co-op in Manchester. So that's the idea. Winston's should be the favoured cause and charity of the life sector.
Thank you, John.